The phone rang at exactly 3:17 in the morning. The kind of call that every grandmother fears. The kind that makes your heart stop before you even answer. And when I picked it up with trembling hands, my 8-year-old grandson Tyler's voice came through the speaker so small and terrified that I barely recognized it. "Grandma," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Grandma, please help me. She's hurting me. She locks me in the dark and I'm so scared." And before I could say a word, before I could ask him where he was or what was happening, I heard a woman's voice screaming in the background, a door slamming, and then the line went dead, just went completely dead, and I sat there in my bed at 70 years old, holding a silent phone and feeling my entire world collapse because I knew, with every instinct in my body that my grandson was in terrible danger, and I had exactly 0 idea where he was or how to save him. My name is Ruth. I am 70 years old, and what I am about to tell you is the true story of how I spent 6 days searching for my missing grandson, how I discovered that the person hurting him was someone I had trusted completely, and how what I found in that basement when I finally tracked him down was so horrifying that the police officers who came with me actually vomited at the scene. And if you think you know where this story is going, if you think you have heard stories like this before, I promise you that what happened is worse than anything you can imagine. So please stay with me until the very end, because this is not just a story about one grandmother's nightmare. This is a warning about the monsters that hide in plain sight, about the signs we miss, about the moment when you realize that the person you thought you knew is actually a stranger capable of unspeakable evil. Before you hear how I found Tyler and what condition he was in, before I tell you about the evidence that made hardened detectives cry, please do me one favor. Please hit that subscribe button right now, because this channel is dedicated to telling true stories that need to be heard, stories about survival and justice and the courage it takes to fight for the people you love. And every subscription helps us reach more people who might be living through their own nightmare and need to know they are not alone. So please subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with me, because what you are about to hear will change how you see the world. Before I tell you about that 3 a.m. phone call and the 6 days of hell that followed, I need to take you back 3 months earlier so you understand how we got here, so you can see the warning signs that I missed, so you can learn from my mistakes, because I will carry the guilt of what happened to Tyler for the rest of my life. 3 months before that terrible phone call, my son Marcus, Tyler's father, came to visit me at my small house in Ohio, and he looked terrible. His eyes were hollow like he had not slept in weeks. His clothes hung loose on his frame, as if he had lost 20 pounds. And when I hugged him, I could feel him trembling, and I knew immediately that something was very wrong. "Mom," he said, sitting at my kitchen table with his head in his hands, "I need to tell you something, and I need you not to judge me. I need you to just listen." And I sat down across from him, my heart already sinking, because I could hear in his voice that whatever he was about to say would change everything. Marcus told me that he had been having problems with his wife Lisa, Tyler's mother, that she had become increasingly unstable over the past year, that she would have explosive rages over nothing, that she had started drinking heavily, that Tyler had started wetting the bed again at age 8, which he had not done since he was 4, and that he, Marcus, was planning to file for divorce and fight for full custody of Tyler, because he was genuinely afraid of what Lisa might do. I listened to all of this feeling, my stomach twist into knots, because I had noticed changes in Lisa too. The last few times I had seen her, she had been cold and distant, snapping at Tyler for small things, drinking wine in the afternoon, making comments about how being a mother had ruined her life. But I had told myself it was just stress, just a phase, just the normal struggles of marriage and parenting, and now I was hearing that it was much worse than I had imagined. "Marcus," I said carefully, "have you talked to anyone professional about this? Has Tyler talked to anyone?" He shook his head, tears starting to roll down his cheeks. "I tried to get Lisa to go to couples therapy, but she refused. She said I was the problem, that I was trying to make her look crazy. And I am scared, Mom. I am scared that if I file for divorce, she will do something to hurt Tyler just to hurt me. But I also know I cannot keep him in that house. I cannot keep exposing him to her rages and her drinking. I am trapped, and I do not know what to do." I took his hand across the table and I told him what every mother tells her child. I told him we would figure it out together, that I would help him in any way I could, that Tyler's safety was the most important thing. And Marcus nodded and said he was going to talk to a lawyer that week, that he was going to start documenting everything, that he was going to fight for his son no matter what it took. And when he left my house that day, I felt a terrible sense of foreboding, like I was watching him walk into a storm that would destroy us all. But I pushed that feeling down. I told myself that everything would work out, that the legal system would protect Tyler, that Lisa, despite her problems, would never actually hurt her own child. I told myself all of these comforting lies because the truth that was sitting in my gut like a stone, was too terrible to acknowledge. If you are watching this and you recognize yourself in this story, if you have a grandchild in a dangerous situation, if you are seeing warning signs that something is wrong, please do not make the mistake I made. Please do not wait. Please do not assume that things will work themselves out. Please act now before it is too late. And please subscribe to this channel so you can share these stories with others who need to hear them. Because awareness saves lives. Because speaking up saves lives. Because taking action, even when you are scared, saves lives. So please click that subscribe button and help us spread this message to people who desperately need to hear it. 2 weeks after Marcus visited me, I called his house to check on him and Tyler. But the phone just rang and rang until it went to voicemail, so I left a message asking them to call me back. But no one did. So the next day I tried again, and this time Lisa answered, and her voice was so cold it sent a chill down my spine. "What do you want, Ruth?" she asked, not even bothering with a greeting, and I said carefully, "I just wanted to check on everyone to see how Tyler is doing. Can I talk to him?" There was a long pause, and then Lisa said in a voice that was trying to sound casual, but came out tight and controlled, "Tyler is not here. He is staying with his friend for a few days, and Marcus is out of town for work. So everything is fine. We will call you when we have time." And before I could ask which friend or when Marcus would be back, she hung up on me, just clicked off the call. Like I was a telemarketer, not Tyler's grandmother, not family. Just an annoyance to be dismissed. Something about that conversation felt wrong, felt staged, felt like Lisa was lying. But I did not know why or about what, so I tried calling Marcus's cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. I sent him texts asking him to call me, but they went unread, and a sick feeling started growing in my stomach. A feeling that I tried to ignore, but that got stronger every day. I gave it 3 days. 3 days of trying to reach Marcus or Tyler. 3 days of getting no response. And then I called Marcus's workplace, a software company, where he had worked for 7 years, and I asked to speak to him, and the receptionist said in a confused voice, "I am sorry, ma'am, but Marcus has not been here for 2 weeks. He called in saying he was taking emergency family leave. Is everything okay? My heart started pounding. I thanked her and hung up, and I sat there trying to make sense of what I had just heard. Marcus was not at work. He was not answering his phone. Lisa said he was out of town, but he had told his job he was on emergency family leave. Nothing made sense. Everything felt wrong. And I knew, in my bones, that something terrible had happened. I tried to tell myself I was overreacting, that there was probably a simple explanation. Maybe there was a family emergency on Lisa's side that Marcus had to help with. Maybe their phones were broken. Maybe they were all together somewhere, having a wonderful time, and just forgot to tell me. But none of these explanations felt right. They all felt like the lies I was telling myself to avoid facing the truth that was screaming in my gut. The truth that something was very, very wrong. On day 5 of not hearing from Marcus or Tyler, I was sitting at my kitchen table staring at my phone and trying to decide if I was being a paranoid old woman or if I should drive the 4 hours to their house and see for myself, when the phone rang, and I saw Tyler's name on the caller ID. Tyler was calling me on Marcus's phone, and I grabbed it so fast I almost dropped it, and I said breathlessly, "Tyler, sweetie, is that you?" And I heard him crying, heard him sobbing so hard he could barely speak. "Grandma," he gasped out. "Grandma, I am so scared. Dad is gone, and she locked me in the basement, and she only lets me out to go to the bathroom. And she said if I tell anyone, she will hurt me worse." And I felt ice water flood my veins, felt the room start to spin. "Tyler, where are you? Where is your father? Stay on the phone with me." But before he could answer, I heard footsteps pounding, heard Lisa's voice screaming, "You little bastard. You stole the phone. Give it to me now." And then there was the sound of Tyler crying and begging, "No, please. I am sorry, please." And then a loud crack, like a hand hitting skin, and Tyler screamed. And then the phone went dead, just completely silent, and I sat there holding it and shaking so hard my teeth were chattering. I immediately called 911, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. And when the operator answered, I said in a rush, "My grandson just called me. Someone is hurting him. He said his mother locked him in a basement. Please, you have to send someone." And I gave them the address, gave them all the information I could, and the operator said in a calm voice, "Ma'am, we are sending officers to do a welfare check right now. Can you stay on the line?" But I could not stay on the line. I had to go. I had to get to Tyler. So I hung up and I grabbed my purse and my car keys, and I drove. I drove like a woman, possessed, 4 hours to Marcus and Lisa's house, breaking every speed limit, crying and praying the entire way, praying that Tyler was okay, that the police had gotten there, that this was all some terrible misunderstanding, but knowing deep in my soul that what I was going to find would be worse than I could imagine. When I pulled up to the house 3.5 hours later, there were 2 police cars in the driveway, their lights flashing red and blue against the suburban houses, and I jumped out of my car and ran toward the front door where 2 officers were talking to Lisa, and Lisa looked perfectly calm, perfectly put together, her hair and makeup done, wearing a nice dress, smiling at the officers like they were old friends. And one of the officers, a young man who could not have been more than 25, turned to me and said, "Ma'am, are you Ruth, the grandmother who called this in?" And I nodded, barely able to speak, and he said, "We have checked the house and spoken to Ms. Lisa. And she has explained that there was a misunderstanding, that Tyler called you during a timeout for misbehaving and exaggerated the situation. She has shown us that Tyler is safe and unharmed, and we see no evidence of abuse or neglect. And I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. I looked at Lisa, and she was smiling at me, a cold, triumphant smile that said, "You cannot touch me." If you are feeling angry right now, if you're yelling at your screen that the police should have done more, that they should have looked harder, please channel that anger into action. Please subscribe to this channel where we share stories about how the system fails vulnerable people, about how we have to fight for justice ourselves, about how we cannot rely on others to save the people we love. We have to be willing to do whatever it takes. So please subscribe. Please share these stories. Please help us build a community of people who refuse to look away when something is wrong, because your subscription, your share, your comment might be what saves the next Tyler, so please do it right now. Click that button, because we need you in this fight. I looked at the officer and I said as calmly as I could, even though I was shaking with rage, "Officer, I need to see my grandson. I need to see with my own eyes that he is okay." And the officer looked at Lisa, and Lisa shrugged and said in a sweet voice, "Of course, Ruth can see Tyler. I have nothing to hide. Tyler is upstairs in his room. He is just upset because I took away his video games for lying." And she smiled at me again, and I wanted to scream, wanted to grab her and shake her. But instead I just walked into the house, walked up the stairs that I had walked up dozens of times before, and I went to Tyler's room, and when I opened the door I saw him sitting on his bed, and the sight of him broke my heart into a million pieces. Tyler looked like he had aged 5 years in 2 weeks. His face was pale and thin. His eyes were hollow and red from crying. He had a bruise on his cheek that was fading to yellow, and when he saw me he burst into fresh tears and ran to me, and I caught him and held him and felt his little body shaking, and he whispered into my ear so quietly I almost could not hear him, "Grandma, she is lying. She hurt me. She locked me in the dark for 3 days. She said she killed Dad. Please do not leave me here." And I felt something inside me harden into steel, felt a determination that I had never felt before. I looked at this 8-year-old boy who I loved more than my own life, and I made him a promise right there. I said, "Tyler, I am going to get you out of here. I promise you. Grandma is going to fix this, but you have to be brave a little bit longer." And he nodded against my chest, his tears soaking my shirt. I went back downstairs where Lisa and the officers were waiting, and I said to the officers in the firmest voice I could manage, "I want to file a report. I believe my grandson is being abused. I want this documented." And one of the officers sighed and pulled out a notebook and took down my statement. But I could see in his eyes that he did not believe me, that he thought I was an overprotective grandmother causing drama. And when they left, they told Lisa, "We will follow up if there are any further concerns." And she thanked them sweetly and closed the door. And then she turned to me and her face changed. The sweet mask dropped away, and what was underneath was cold and hateful. "You need to leave my house, Ruth," she said in a voice like ice. "You need to leave and never come back. Tyler is my son, not yours. And if you try to interfere again, I will get a restraining order against you. Do you understand?" I looked at her and I said quietly, "Where is Marcus? Where is my son?" And she laughed, actually laughed, and said, "Marcus left. He could not handle being a father anymore. He walked out on both of us. So it is just me and Tyler now, and we do not need you." And I knew she was lying, Knew it in every cell of my body, but I also knew that if I pushed too hard right now, she would never let me see Tyler again. So I nodded, and I left. But as I was walking out, I turned back and I said, "I will see you soon, Lisa." And she slammed the door in my face. I sat in my car shaking, trying to figure out what to do, trying to make sense of what I had just seen and heard. Tyler's bruises, his terror, his whispered words about Lisa killing Marcus, Lisa's lies about Marcus leaving, the police officers who had seen nothing wrong. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare, and no matter how hard I tried to wake up, I could not. So I did the only thing I could think of. I drove to the police station, and I demanded to speak to a detective. And I spent 3 hours there, telling them everything. Tyler's phone call, his whispered confession, Lisa's lies, Marcus's disappearance. And the detective, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, listened and took notes, and finally said, "Mrs. Ruth, I understand your concerns, but without evidence of a crime, we cannot force entry into the home. We cannot remove a child from a parent without proof of abuse. And your son, Marcus, is an adult. If he chose to leave his family, that is his choice. I am sorry, but there is nothing we can do right now, unless Tyler makes a disclosure to a mandated reporter like a teacher or doctor." And I felt despair wash over me, felt the weight of a system that would not protect a child until it was too late. I left the police station feeling defeated, but also more determined than I had ever been in my life. I knew that if the police would not help me, then I would have to help Tyler myself. I would have to find evidence. I would have to prove what Lisa was doing. And most urgently, I had to find out what happened to Marcus. Because if Tyler was right, if Lisa really had done something to him, then she was far more dangerous than anyone realized, and Tyler was living with a murderer.
At 9 p.m. that night, I was in an unmarked police car with the detective and 2 other officers, and we drove to Lisa's house, and there were more police cars coming from other directions, and we all arrived at once, and the detective knocked on the door and announced, "Police, we have a warrant. Open the door now." And Lisa opened it looking surprised and angry, and they pushed past her and they read her rights, and they handcuffed her right there in her own living room, and she was screaming, "What is this about? You cannot do this. I have rights." And the detective said coldly, "You are under arrest for the murder of Marcus Thompson and for child abuse and child endangerment." And Lisa's face went white, and then she started laughing, actually laughing, and she said, "You will never find him. You will never prove anything, and Tyler will never tell you what happened because I broke him. I broke that little brat." And hearing her say those words, hearing her confess so casually to hurting Tyler, I lunged at her. I actually tried to attack her, and the officers had to hold me back, and the detective said, "Mrs. Ruth, please let us do our job. Go wait outside." But I shook my head and I said, "No, I need to find Tyler. Where is Tyler?" And one of the officers said, "We are searching the house now. We will find him." They searched the first floor, then the second floor. Tyler was not in his bedroom. He was not anywhere upstairs. And then they went to the basement, and I followed even though they told me not to. I had to see. I had to know. And when they opened the basement door and turned on the light and went down the stairs, what we found at the bottom made 2 of the officers turn away, made one of them run back upstairs to be sick, and made me fall to my knees and scream. Tyler was there in the basement. He was in a small closet under the stairs. The door had a padlock on the outside, and when they broke the lock and opened the door, we saw him. He was curled up on a pile of dirty blankets. He was so thin I could see every bone in his little body. His clothes were filthy and torn. He had bruises and cuts all over him. His face was covered in dried tears and dirt, and he was clutching a stuffed rabbit that I had given him years ago. And when the light hit him, he curled up tighter and whimpered, "Please no more. I will be good, please." And I pushed past the officers and I got down on the filthy floor and I said, "Tyler, sweetie, it is Grandma. You are safe now. Grandma is here." And he opened his eyes and looked at me, and I saw in those eyes a depth of suffering that no child should ever know. And he whispered, "Grandma, you came for me." And then he collapsed, just went limp in my arms, and the officers called for an ambulance, and I held my grandson and I rocked him and I told him over and over, "You are safe now. You are safe. Grandma has you. No one will ever hurt you again." And I meant it. I meant every word. No matter what it took, no matter what I had to do, I would make sure that Tyler was safe and that the woman who did this to him would pay for every moment of his suffering. If you have stayed with me through this whole story, if you have felt the horror and the rage and the heartbreak that I felt, then please do something for me right now. Please subscribe to this channel, because stories like Tyler's happen every day, because children are suffering while the system fails them, because we need to build a community of people who will not look away, who will not stay silent, who will fight for children who cannot fight for themselves. So please subscribe, please share this video, please help us spread awareness, because your action right now, this small, simple action of clicking subscribe, could be what saves the next child. So please do it. Do it for Tyler. Do it for all the children who need us. Tyler was in the hospital for 3 weeks. He was severely malnourished, severely dehydrated. He had infections from untreated wounds. He had broken fingers from where Lisa had slammed a door on his hand. He had burns on his back from where she had put out cigarettes. And worst of all, he had such severe psychological trauma that he would not speak for the first week. He would just lie in that hospital bed, clutching his rabbit and staring at nothing. And the doctors told me gently that the road to recovery would be very, very long, that Tyler might never fully heal from what he had been through. But I told them that I did not care how long it took. I would be there every step of the way. I would get Tyler whatever help he needed. I would spend the rest of my life making sure he felt safe and loved and valued. The trial was brutal. I sat through every day of it, even though every moment was torture, even though hearing the evidence and seeing the photographs and listening to Tyler's testimony on video made me physically ill. I sat there because I needed to see justice done. I needed to see Lisa punished for what she had done to my family, and the evidence against her was overwhelming. The journals where she had planned everything, the physical evidence from the storage unit, her own confession about where Marcus was buried, the medical evidence of what she had done to Tyler, and most damning of all, they found surveillance footage from a neighbor's security camera that showed Lisa and an accomplice dragging something heavy wrapped in a tarp out of the house on the night Marcus died. The accomplice turned out to be that man I had seen visiting her. He was her lover. They had been having an affair for over a year, and she had promised him that once Marcus was dead and she collected the insurance money, they could be together. But when she got arrested, he turned on her immediately. He testified against her in exchange for a reduced sentence. He admitted that he had helped her move the body, that he had known what she was doing to Tyler. And hearing that, knowing that there were two adults who could have saved my grandson and chose not to, I had to be physically restrained from attacking him in the courtroom. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. They came back with a verdict of guilty on all charges: first-degree murder for Marcus, child abuse and torture for what she did to Tyler. And the judge, a woman with steel in her eyes, looked at Lisa and said, "I have been on this bench for 23 years, and I have never seen a case that disgusted me more than this one. You tortured and murdered your husband. You tortured your own child. You are not a mother. You are a monster, and I am sentencing you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And I hope that every day you spend behind bars, you think about what you did to that innocent little boy." And Lisa showed no emotion, no remorse. She just stared straight ahead like she was bored. And as they led her away in chains, she looked at me and she smiled, actually smiled, and I knew that she would never feel sorry for what she had done, that she was incapable of feeling empathy or guilt or love. She was broken in some fundamental way that could never be fixed.